Good
Morning.
morning, morning. It's the consequences of being big brained, I think. That's the problem. Got to carry around the forehead to go with it. Now, if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. All right, good deal. Hey, everybody. Good evening. Oh, Bart, is it about? Is it 4 o'clock or is it 5 o'clock?
It's 4 to
Oh,
be
okay,
exact.
yeah, that's what I said. Is it 3 o'clock or is it 4 o'clock? Okay, yeah. Okay, very good. But
It's
for
actually, sorry, it's actually the first sunny day we've had in about 5 months, so I'm embracing it.
yeah, oh, nice. Okay, yeah. There's a community member who's got his his profile under PR right now on the Layer5 IO site. His name's Nick Jackson, and he's out of the UK as well. He's in London. I've been listening to him piss and moan. We talk every week. He just talks about the weather. He lives in these like Victorian, older style Victorian homes, and his office space is set up like right next to this window that, to hear him speak of it, it's the most cattywampus, like wonky fitting, like obtuse, not rectangular, but obtuse shaped window, because the house has like shifted, over time. And so he just has this constant draft. Guy's the biggest whiner, I tell you.
We like to talk about weather quite a lot over here because it changes all the time. So
Sure. Yeah. Another friend of mine, also in the UK, he's CTO at Docker now, and Justin Cormack, also continuously taking pictures of the weather outside. He just, like, every other tweet from him is an outside photo. So good. So now that I'm done complaining, we're 5 minutes after, what is it, Friday the 26th, so last one of February. And we've got a number of things to chat through. So welcome, everybody. Is anyone here for the first time? Has anyone not had a chance to introduce themselves on the call? Looking. Well, I don't know. I don't know whether to be really just impressively, there's like 20 old timers on the call, or if that's a bad sign. We're not. Boy, a congregation will die if we don't get some new blood. If we have to start feeding on ourselves, I think. Okay. Is Anirudh on? Yeah, I was just talking to him. No, okay. Well, there's this letter of rec, something happening over here. So, okay, I was going to tease him about it. All right, good. Wow, what a long way to get started. There aren't any newcomers on this call at the moment, but there's been a number who've joined in the community recently. We had given a workshop at IstioCon on Monday, and we might hear a bit from Adina about that today. I'm curious, did anyone pop by IstioCon? Did anybody see a talk, or other than Adina, who's gonna, or see any news coming out of the conference, or it had about 4,000, just shy, 4,000 attendees. Basically, each time I got on, there were about that many, which I guess, it's a COVID number. That's a very high number for an inaugural event. Although with virtual events and them being more or less, a lot of times free, it's easier to get some additional butts in the seats. But does speak to the interest level around Istio around service mesh. Good. So welcome. So the reason I mentioned that is because there's a few newcomers who joined based on having taken the workshop. So if all of you are hopefully very familiar, and if you're not, I really encourage you to go take this workshop. There's 2 of them. They are self-study workshops. They teach people. So here's the one that we did on Monday, and they teach people about, well, specifically, they teach people about service meshes. This one specifically Istio, and they do it by using Meshery. So we use Meshery as a teaching tool, and that's part of the genesis story for Meshery is as a teaching tool. So one, your works were being shown off and used, which is great. Actually, Husseina, who's on the call, is engaged with one of those users in helping figure out some trouble that they were having with GKE and Meshery. I had a second point in there. Oh, but it was, I guess, 2, go take the workshop. You'll find links in here. It's self-study. There's 3 repositories in the Layer5 IO repos where if you so Bart actually says you're top of mind as you go to familiarize more with the domain space and part of the technologies used. So really, and get more familiar with Meshery and you begin to affect how it works. Walking through one of these workshops could be is a good use of your time. I think is helpful just to digest some of that tech.
I'll get involved.
Nice, good. All right, well, does anyone else have announcements before we get into topics? Does anyone else have topics to add or things to talk about? Stuff that's happened to them, things they've seen in the news, new tech that they've stumbled across?
I've never muted, but the 3060 cards are again like taken up by scalpers, so that's not going to come again for a while.
Yeah. Wait, say it again. The 3060. What?
I assume this is just general tech, so ignore if that was not the question.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But,
gotcha. Well, with that, Pranav, let me hand it off to you for the next topic.
all right, sure. So, I guess this is just going to be a repetition of what was shared during the IstioCon workshop. I'm not too sure, so it's just a quick recap, and I'll just also similarly go over some of the changes that I feel would make the process more seamless. So I've gone ahead and taken the liberty of deploying the Istio service mesh already, and my internet's a bit choppy, so hopefully the application as well deploys for the purpose of the demo. And okay, so while this is going on, essentially what I'm doing is, I'm just deploying the ImageHub application. And one of the changes that I have introduced first is that in the documentation of ImageHub, there's really no mention of how to so when you create the virtual service, right? So it directs to imagehub.meshery.io, but not like everyone doesn't have this IP necessarily in their host file already. So I thought one good addition would be to just add this to the documentation. This automatically adds the required IP to the host file. So just taking that, things working fine. So let me just quickly copy that and show that ImageHub is indeed working. Okay, I think it's give me a second. Right. All right. I think this is the case that I was working on. This is, I believe, Murphy's Law at work. All right. So I'll just talk about a bit more of what I had in mind. And, okay, so that was the first change. The other couple of changes I thought that was I guess needed was that the issue
Pranav. Pranav, if you can hear me.
when deploying this was that my API and web, what do you say, image versions were old. So we need a
Okay. Okay, so we lost Pranav. I suspect that was either accidental or purposeful to reset his connection, but either way, he'll probably be back. That actually gives us just a moment to introduce this topic. I don't know that it's familiar to everyone. So to do that briefly, have people heard of, so how do we do this quickly? One of the projects that we have is so in the spirit of learning again, is a project called Image Hub, and Image Hub is a sample application. That's it. It's meant to be played around with. It's meant to teach people about advanced filters that you can have in a service mesh. These filters are network packet filters. So, so if you're running an application on a service mesh, and like this, if you have an, and this is, yeah, I guess I thought this was going to be simple to look at, but it's a bit. Anyway, if you ignore some of the details in the box, if you're running an app and it's a web app, people, you have visitors that make a request. They send over application traffic. They do an HTTP GET request. If that application is running on a mesh, the service mesh sees the request, and if it wants to, it can open up your request and take a look at it. Take a look at those HTTP headers. Maybe check out who's authentic, like who's doing the request. Some details about the user token that you might have. Some details about how many times you've made a request recently. Maybe whether or not to rate limit you. Maybe you're being abusive of the site, so hey, back off. And there's a lot of different decisions that a service mesh could make about what to do with that request. Pass it along expediently, slow it down, stop it, change it, send it somewhere else, a number of things. And so this sample app was created a while ago. It is intended to demonstrate the fact that service meshes can decide what to do with that traffic by incorporating application level logic or business logic. And so the sample app that was created used Docker Hub as an example. So we created this sample app, and we did give a presentation at DockerCon. So we made a sample app called, instead of calling it Docker Hub, we called it Image Hub, just sort of a generic ripoff of something that people would understand. And what we were showing with Image Hub is to intelligently rate limit users who are making pull requests. So when you're running Docker and you want to pull down a container image, by default, you'll pull down that container image from Docker Hub. Well, Docker Hub has gotten fed up with, or it costs Docker a lot to persist all of the world's images, everybody's images that they build and push and pull. And sometimes people set up continuous integration systems to pull down those images a lot, like programmatically. And Docker as a company, they've got to pay for that. They use, AWS, they use S3 object storage to store those images. And we're talking about the world. So like, it's a lot, it costs a lot for the network traffic. It costs a lot for the storage. And they've begun to rate limit how frequently users that are not paying for a subscription, they've begun to rate limit how frequently those images can be pulled. They can rely on the intelligence of a service mesh to perform that type of action. So the service mesh can look at the pull request and say, well, hey, who's this user? Are they authenticated? Do they have the permission to pull an image? And then more than that, if you're using advanced network filters, these filters are written, these protocol filters, these packet filters, they're written using WebAssembly. They're written, in this case, they're written using Rust, but they compile to WebAssembly as a small virtual machine. That small virtual machine can run inside of a service mesh proxy like Envoy. And if you want, this becomes a small application, this small network filter. That application you can tell it to do even higher level intelligence things, like not just, hey, who is this user and do they have permission to pull, but also who is this user? Do they have the permission? Do they have an active subscription? And is that the free tier or is that the enterprise tier? And, depending upon which one that is, okay, let them continue to make a high rate of pull requests, or don't, block them, rate limit them. And so that's the backstory to what ImageHub is as a sample app, and helping teach people about the fact that you can expect that type of intelligence from a service mesh. And so if Pranav ends up joining us back, yeah. And so Pranav, if you want to pick up from there and continue with where you left off. And Pranav, can you hear me? You might still be having audio challenges. Cool. We'll circle back in case Pranav's connection starts to work later. We'll come back to, but I won't steal Pranav's thunder. The gist of what he's working on is to take that sample application and make it more generic, make it more generally usable. Because when we wrote the sample app, we did it really fast, and we hard coded in some values around the enterprise plan or the free plan, or look up the user and expect this type of cookie, but maybe we should be expecting a cookie or a JOT, a JWT, or so he's working to generalize that as a general capability, with the intention of enhancing Meshery with that. So Meshery as a service mesh management tool is capable of doing what's pictured here. So Meshery over here on the left, it is capable of on the fly inserting a filter, and the filter of your choice, because which WebAssembly app is appropriate is dependent upon your application and what your application is doing. And so and maybe it's not just one filter, maybe it's a couple, maybe the filter that you need to run, maybe it changes over time. Maybe the filter that you need to run changes based on the user that's making requests. And so anyway, Mesh3 is going to both help dynamically load and unload filters, as well as it would be the point of configuration for if you're running this and you want to configure, maybe Bart has signed up for maybe Bart's an employee and he's unrestricted. Like he's not on the free plan, the team plan, or the enterprise plan. He's on the employee plan. So just all of his traffic gets bypassed. Well, Mesh3 can be that point of configuration for the behavior of these filters. So Pranav is working to make that a more generic capability. Questions, comments, ideas on this? Cool. It's one of those things you'll hear a lot about in a couple of years. It'll take a while. Pranav, go ahead.
Yeah, so my connection right now is it's barely able to keep up. I haven't been able to pull images, and it's I tested it and it was working. Beautifully right before the call, and I can talk about it pretty well. And I was about hello.
Hey, Pranav, you know what we heard is hello, am I audible? That's about all that we heard in the last minute. So it's really bad.
Yeah, I'll just I'll try and figure out a better way. My connection situation, like.
Yeah, very good. Okay, we did hear that.
Yeah, that's because I stopped Minikube.
Oh.
So I don't think the demo is going to be possible today.
Yeah.
But okay, so I'll just quickly talk about the issues that that I sort of found. It's just generally, as of now, I'm still getting into the wasm filter part of it, and I'm still toying around with that. But in general, for future workshops and so on, there are a couple of issues that I found. So first was the documentation on the image hub page itself is quite outdated. So I've just been putting in some effort into revamping that and making it easier. So like for one of the examples is that the virtual services for the web part of the image hub sample app. This is how do you say it? Like you need to like it uses imagehub.mesh.io, and for that you need to take the Istio ingress ingress gateway and then do all sorts of stuff to get the IP. So what I've done is that I've taken one of the commands that I found in the workshops and I've just included it in the docs, and I've just made the process a little more streamlined to help people who are going to be trying it out in the future. Second issue that I found is that when I tried to run it, it was using an older version of the container images. So the versioning for the images is all of them are just V1. So I have to again make some changes in the YAML to make sure it pulls the latest ones with the latest fixes. So versioning has to be handled. And the third thing is that when you click deploy onward filter for image hub, basically it runs there's a file located situated in the Mesh3-Istio repository called imagefilter.yaml. So it basically takes that, it looks at, oh, okay, this guy is using Istio version 1.7, so that 1.7 is hard coded. So if I'm running 1.9, it will still apply that 1.7 YAML, and you will have to sit and manually change it and apply the custom YAML once more in order to get the actual thing working. So I was thinking that, instead of hard coding the 1.7 or the Istio version, you could make that dynamic as well. So you will alleviate that issue as well. So these are just some thoughts on general, bettering the chances of it being deployed successfully. So this is all I have. Currently, I'm working on adding Postgres support to this. So, like you mentioned, Lee, the paths and all currently are hard coded. So you have enterprise, project, and personal. So instead of that, it pulls from Postgres database, and I'm still working on how to make the wasm filter sort of do that, and where to run the Postgres, like what you say, container service or whatever. That and all, I think I'm going to handle a little bit, but that's generally where I am so far with the project. I hope my connection didn't.
No, that was good. It was good. I'm encouraged now that I had the success rate of newcomers being successful. Picking up something like this is relatively low. So there's an implicit compliment to you somewhere in there.
Thank you.
There is, I guess to be blunt, to be frank, like later today, I'm going to go write up 4 different internships, probably between Linux, between Google and the CNCF, and this will probably be one of them. There's a director of engineering at Salesforce, a friend of mine, a former colleague from Cisco. He was taking a look at ImageHub and said the same thing that Pranav said, which is the README for ImageHub leaves him wondering what the project is about. Completely fair feedback, Pranav. Please let's go change that, and we need to sort of concisely speak to the fact that it's an educational tool. It's a sample app, and then we can start from there, go from there. Cool. So part of Pranav's goal here is to open up this capability to make it generic, both so that people can use that tech, not just with the sample app ImageHub, but many other apps. Also to make it generic such that it works across any Envoy-based data plane, of which there are a number, and I prattled off 3 of them, or there's 4 of them, including console. You ever felt like you had to sneeze for like a minute? There's 4 of them, including console and maybe some others. So anything that you do against something like against Envoy, you get bang for your buck, which is good. So good. I'm excited. Pranav, of the 2 requests that I have, give a try on the README if you would. Second to that, if you're able to record and your demo locally and send, I'd be interested to watch it. So.
Yeah, the README, it's a work in progress. So as and when I encounter bugs, I'm just updating it constantly. And like you saw, I don't know if you saw actually, when I was sharing my screen, and if it indeed did send, I have like a text document just jotting down all the changes, all the tiny things I need to add, and eventually it's going to be in the state where whether or not it will work on console, on Istio for sure, any beginner can pick it up and just implement it. That's my end goal for the README. As well for the recording, immediately, like tonight, I might not be able to do it, but within the next 2 days, I'll for sure just demo it. It's not going to be too long. It may be 5 minutes. 4 minutes at most. So cool.
Beautiful. Thank you for this. This is good. It's good. Utkarsh.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. Good. So Utkarsh is up next. He's been working on an area for enhancing the performance management capabilities of Meshry. He wants to get some feedback from everybody.
Yeah, actually, this is still, the UI is still being worked on. So this is a familiar page where we basically run the performance tests in Meshry. But one thing that is new in here is this button, which is disabled for now. So what this button, what I'm adding here in here is the capability to create a profile, a performance profile, so that you can categorize your tests and basically save all of your test configurations at one place. But the model that is being presented in here, it doesn't have a lot of things right now. Only things that it that is capturing right now is performance. That it is a profile name, but the goal is to actually not the goal. It will be really soon added in here. Is the ability to specify schedules in here so that you can specify your that basically this is your performance profile. It is this is the name of the performance profile, and at what time you want to run the test in these profiles along with all of the configurations that you have specified in here. Right now this the model is really simple, but definitely would have a lot of more features in here. I don't know. Because it's still in progress, I don't even know. So what you can do in here is
You're courageous for having clicked submit. So
yeah, so just like earlier, you can specify all of the things that we used to. It's just that now, although on the front nothing has changed, but on the background, or now from now, all of the tests would belong to a performance profile. If you specify it, good. You can reuse it. If you don't, then also we will actually capture a performance profile. The name will be randomly assigned, but yeah, we will be capturing it so that you can just click on, like someday you said, okay, we ran a test on this date and we didn't have to say the profile, but now I do want to say it. We can go ahead and click on it. So that's the reason that every test should now be a part of a performance profile. So now you can submit it, and I hope my tokens are expiring. Nice. Yep. So, and now here you can see all of your profiles. If this works. Yeah, so here you I created profiles earlier too. So, and I ran a few tests. So now you can, like, when you clicked on a profile, this test profile, it has the right now the UI is actually capturing only one endpoint, but you would soon be able to capture a lot more. These fields are again rigid schedules, not necessarily that we are capturing in the UI there. So the UI as of now is that you have a list of profiles that you've created. You can click on the profile name and you would visit this page. And here are all of the tests that would run under that profile. So this test was, name is completely random. I didn't choose any service mesh either. And this is the old formula UI that we had for the test. It's just that now the test results are categorized in the sense that all of them are coming under a performance profiling. This undefined, that's not what you would see. It would be a better randomly. This is the bug that I'm working on. But yeah, so here also. This is one of the profile that you didn't probably have created, but you ran a test, and it just captured all of the details under a randomly assigned profile name. Oh yeah, actually the UI is still like work in progress, but this is almost how it would be looking like. Just a few things would be added here. That is, this actions thing is not working. What you would get in here is the ability to change your profile. That is, you may have mentioned, and like maybe you mistyped endpoint and you might want to change it. So like basically updating your profiles as well as triggering a run, stuff like that.
Thoughts, questions, feedback?
So I just had one question. So is each profile going to be like, associated with one run, or is it like, are you grouping multiple runs under one profile? I'm sorry if I missed that. I think you mentioned something about it in London.
No, I didn't actually specify it properly. So what will happen is you will profile is kind of a superset of this. I mean, in a hierarchy, profile is above test, so you can have n number of tests under the same profile. What will happen is all of these tests are going to actually share the same configuration that you specified in the profile. So when you are creating a profile, you are specifying all of the the endpoint, your service mesh, your content request, and advanced options, all of these things. They were used to be a part of test, now they are part of profile, and all of the tests that will be triggered from that profile, they will inherit those configurations. So one profile is going to have a number of tests. It is done so that you can like specify, you can come in here and create a profile like fortnightly tests on this thing. You can name it something like that, and you can specify a schedule that okay, run it on like every 14 days or something. And now every 14 days, the test will automatically be triggered, and you can track it in here. That is, you can come in here, you can click on the fortnightly test, and you can see all of the tests that will run on every 14 days, and you can check all the results. So yeah, the hierarchy is that these performance profiles are superset, and then there are a number of tests within it.
Got it. Thanks.
Other feedback? Thoughts? Utkarsh, you may have earned a new middle name during the demo, so you'll have to check out the chat for that. Beautiful. Okay. Well, I'm going to withhold 20 minutes of feedback and instead save that 20 minutes for our next topics. Who's up next? Mr. Klansky, that might be you.
Hello.
There he is. Yeah, so take it from the very top. I don't know if we really talked about the configuration wizard much, but any context you can provide as you start to talk about what your thoughts toward this would be good.
Yeah, sure. I haven't got a lot to show. However, we're building a mesh reconfiguration wizard. The purpose of it is to help the user set up and connect Meshry. It's essentially like a multi-step form, like you see in desktop applications. So kind of using a material UI multi-step form as a base, and then kind of add in adding stuff to it. So far we've had the first design, and I've been working on the prototype. If you've not seen the design yet, it's just on the screen now. I think it's absolutely amazing. I just look forward to building it.
Oh, nice. Good, Bart. I'm doing my best not to steal any of your thunder, so I'm just bringing this up to help.
No, that's fine.
Provide context. So, how many steps are we thinking about now?
We're looking at 4. They are all on the screen. We've also been working on like a welcome screen, just to explain to the user what this is.
Nice. Okay. Austin, other context to add here?
Hello everyone. Bart also created a live prototype from what we've been able to bring out. And what you see on the screen is currently our second iteration of the design. We are working on finalizing that, and then we'll have another iteration on making it better. So Bart worked on a demo, which I can share. Let me quickly share my screen. Okay, I was trying to upload it on the drive. Okay, Bart worked on it. Is a current demo on it. Yeah, where shows the functionality at the sense whereby you cannot pass if you do not complete the first step. More like a lot of the rings the team, like thou shalt not pass if thou hast not connected the coordinates, which we are trying to finalize. But this is like the live demo of the configuration wizard from our first prototype. So by the time we finalize the second iteration of the design, we'll move to creating another demo and prototyping. That's what I have to say. I'll be dropping the link to the video of this the demo by Bart in the Mesri drive, and sharing the links the link in the meeting minutes rather. Okay, that's all. Thanks everyone.
Nice. Good. I'm gonna comment for just a couple of minutes, and we'll get to the next topic. That is, well, I guess so. So for additional context, hopefully in the best of ways, no one ever uses the configuration wizard, which on the forefront doesn't sound great. But hopefully it's the case that when people are using Meshery, it just, it's intuitive enough that they don't need the configuration wizard. And it turns out I'm not running Meshery at the moment, but I don't know that that's, or for sure, that's not always the case. Not everyone necessarily knows where to start. I wanted to bring up a screenshot of the settings page. So when people start up Meshery tries to, it's opinionated, and it tries to make some sane guesses as to how you might want to administer your environment. By the way, Dhruv, are you on? Mr. Patel, what are we looking at here? This doesn't look like what I'm used to seeing when I go to sign in.
Yeah, just a small update too, so that things look like they should look.
Okay. Good. Drew, you didn't know you were demoing today, but Good, nice. So everyone, Drew made an update to the provider UI, and now it looks, even more like Meshery, which is great. So I said I would try to be quick, and I'm not being concise. The point here is people drop into Meshery. It tries to make intelligent guesses about how they're going to run their infrastructure and how to connect to their infrastructure. So it tries to auto-connect to Kubernetes. Meshery isn't entirely dependent upon Kubernetes, but it does really want to use Kubernetes, and we lean into, we more or less expect that there will be a Kubernetes. You can run Meshery without, only some features work without though. Right now, Meshery provisions all of its service meshes on Kubernetes. So connecting there and kind of starting there is very important. When someone loads up Meshery and is not connected to Kubernetes, or it can't connect to its adapters, it becomes obvious here. It also becomes obvious that Meshery isn't connected to Prometheus or Grafana, but there's nothing that steps the user through how to really make sure that their environment, that their Meshery deployment is configured and kind of ready to go with a base level of configuration. And so Bart, Austin, and perhaps Nikhil are on a journey to create this configuration wizard. The initial thought is that maybe there would be an additional button up here that would be, or icon that would be perpetually available for the user to run at any time, but that when the user initially starts up Meshery, that they might end up seeing, one of these initial pop-ups, this little notification from a new icon that says you might want to run this. And when you do, maybe there's between one to 4 or 5 steps. Those steps being getting connected to Kubernetes, getting your Meshery operator deployed on Kubernetes, connecting, maybe deploying a service mesh as an optional 3rd step. And so maybe that would look something like this. Maybe it would, this configuration wizard needs to understand that you may already have a service mesh deployed. And so if so, Mesh Sync should discover it. When Mesh Sync would discover it after you connect to the Meshery operator. So all of these things that the configuration wizard are doing is taking advantage of Meshery capabilities today, but putting them together in a sequenced step-by-step flow so that the user can be hopefully a lot more successful with Meshery and with their deployments. So while this is a single button, single switcher to provision an instance of console, there are a lot of other configuration ways that you might want to configure console. Well, that's not what the configuration wizard is for. This is the initial, maybe we should put the word initial in front of it or something, but it's the setup configuration wizard. So it's extremely lightweight on purpose. No options to the user. It's just deploy one if you want to, or if there's an existing one detected, then just show you some very high level details about it. And then again, as an optional 4th step, maybe you'd like to deploy or integrate with some metric systems between Grafana and Prometheus. And if you do, great, and then you're all done. These guys, I think Bart and Austin are starting to they're considering kind of a first initial step, which would be, before you connect to Kubernetes, it might be that you would verify that the adapter, that Meshery server and its adapters are in communication with one another. Occasionally, certain deployments in certain way that networks work or what have you, occasionally that's not working. So if that first step is provided, that might be part of what Bart was saying around initial context for what the wizard is intending to help the user do, and also just maybe a verification that Meshery and its adapters are in communicado. Lastly, I think Bart and Austin have given names to these first couple of steps. So for this first step, it's thou shalt not pass if you don't get past the first one. The second one is don't pass go, I think was the second step. So we'll see what they come up with for the 3rd and 4th. But if you're a Lord of the Rings fan or a Monopoly player, those terms will be familiar to you. Maybe they'll put in an Easter egg in there somewhere. We can see what those steps are called. So next up is Michael. There's a, want to talk to us about the messaging system notification center?
Yeah, I can do that. Let me share my screen. No, that's not the one. Yes, this one. So the messaging system and notification center design, as we all know, a lot of the operations and actions that we perform are asynchronous. They take some time to perform, and feedback of all the various bits and pieces of Measury as a whole might arrive sometime later than when a happy user, for instance, sends an operation request through the UI to the Measury server, for instance, to install the Istio adapter, as I've tried to illustrate in this figure here. And any of those components that are involved in executing an operation, or indeed any other thing that happens around Measury and in Measury and by Measury, might create different kind of messages, like error messages, log messages. They might create notifications for other components to do something. And so these messages have to be handled in a good way, and also in a way that is future-proof and that can scale. So this is what this design document is about. So in this example, for instance, the Istio adapter would create an error message. And the idea is that this is then sent to a notification system, and for instance, picked up by a notification center that displays all these different messages and sorts them by type, for instance, by originator, and so on and so forth. Now, one thing that we talked about, and that is of course important, is that when we begin doing this, is to devise a messaging format that is easily to extend and open to extension, and easy to understand. And so we came up with a suggestion that looks a little bit like this. All the different messages have a different class. So it's or a message type or message class, like this one would be an error. You would have a message ID. You would like to know who sends the message, which system or component was sending the message. And then it might also be useful to have a more human-friendly description of the sender, a sender name that specifies which type of system or component was the originator of the message. You like to have fields, correlation ideas, related message ideas, so that you can actually track requests through your system, for instance, if that is desirable. If you send a message back to the messaging system, you would like it to show up in the correct place, like in the user ID. So we might like to have what we called here, I called here requester ID, whether this is a session ID or something like that, so that it ends up in the correct end user interface for the correct end user and displays it there if that's desirable. Then of course you would like to have a timestamp when it originated. And then for each class, you would have a specific map with a field specific for this error class. And I think the sort of like the motivation or use case that is very concrete now is actually how do we handle errors that originate in the different parts of the system, and how do we, what kind of a system do we devise for number them, the error codes, and how do we make this system robust so that we don't accidentally have same error codes for two different errors in the same system, or maybe across systems. And so one thing, we discussed quite a lot about that. And so this here is a suggestion how we could sort of like sort and structure error messages and error codes, sorry, that we structure them by component, which is the first part. Component, for instance, would be the adapter or operator or something like that, and then the concrete implementation of an adapter, for instance, Istio, and then the error code within that component. So the aim is that the developer actually only has to know about and is quite free to assign error codes in this component, and so it doesn't accidentally overlap with error codes in other components, because it is differentiated by using the component type and the component name, if you like. And this also helps to avoid that you have to have a central registry of error code ranges, as we have worked with until now. Something we also discussed and is how can you sort of like make sure that this is actually working? How can you create documentation about these error codes? Because when a user or a developer gets this code back, then somewhere should be documentation that is describing this error, the severity and the cause and remediation, and that this documentation, which could be a large table, for instance, in a Google document, how do we create this? How do we edit this without having to create a new release of an adapter if you want to change remediation or cause descriptions, and so on. So this was just in the beginning of sort of like what we discussed, how we could handle these errors and have some automatism, so that like these tables are updated automatically, and that we have scripts that you can run locally or in a CI/CD pipeline that checks that all error codes are documented, that extracts the documentation and puts them in the documents or the tables or the HTML pages, so that it's that a lot of this can be automated. So one major thing was also that by adding the component type and the component name, if you like, to the code, that you have a better guarantee for that the codes are unique, that you don't have overlap, and especially that you don't have a lot of maintenance headaches with respect to coordinating all these error codes across all the different components.
Hussein, as you reflect on your interactions with, I guess it was Raymond Wong, of who's having challenges with GKE and Meshery.
Yes.
Do you any thoughts to share with Michael and others on this effort, like on the value of such a system?
Yes, this would definitely help, because I was a little bit lost with the initial set of logs, where I was not able to find out the logs specific to configuration related ones. So everything was appended with either the container name or the adapter name. So following such a structured way for error logs would be really great to have. So.
Nice. Yeah, good. Yeah, I totally think so as well, especially when they're unique and people are getting, you know, all of you have Google searched some specific error code. And if
Yes,
you've ever,
yes, yeah. Because I was not, at one point I had a doubt whether I have to pull in another repo to look for these error codes. So I was not sure that this was coming from the Go client. So yeah.
Yeah, so if I may sort of comment on this. So with this, what we discussed yesterday, I think it was, or the day before yesterday. So this error code range would actually not be necessary anymore. So all.
So we would have private IP address network.
Yeah, yeah. So you would have, so all like within a repository, say, if that corresponds to a specific component implementation, then the maintainers of that repository will be completely free, or maybe, you know, almost completely free to decide other error codes. So you could actually have that all, you know, service meshes could have error codes from 1,000 upwards, or from 1 upwards, whatever, and you wouldn't need to coordinate all these ranges, and you would. So like here, you know, you see you're limited to 100 error messages. That might seem a lot, or error codes, but you know, maybe it's not enough, and then you suddenly run into problems, and what do you then? So I think that would be a good way to make this robust and scalable,
and guarantee uniqueness and
yeah.
So self-documenting, uniqueness guaranteed, and self-empowering. Like I'm not, awesome. One thing we might want to do is, as you reflect on that, Michael, it might be that, and we don't need to add my over engineering to this, because you guys will do that onto your own, which is why I'm excited that you guys are focused on it. But I wonder if each of the individual components that subscribe to, that implement this messaging system, if they're more or less, you know, they've got their own mnemonic or their own abbreviation.
Yeah.
So you know, that if it's and that the abbreviation, like Istio, like error code Istio 2000, that 2000 is namespace based on the fact that it has Istio in front of it. So, and it's just what you were just saying. But if something to think about, maybe that there is a little bit of error code ranges, but not based on component, rather that each component would agree that the first 0 to 1000 would be with respect to a particular genre of issue, or that maybe from 0 to 10,000 are, you don't know what type of error it is, but it's an error. If it's from 2,000 to 3,000, it's an info. Like maybe it's based on severity or something. Like maybe there's an easy way that doesn't overcomplicate the engineering of it, but does signal to the user that, oh, this is an HTTP 200. So I can't remember 201, 202, like 20 whatever. All I know is if it's in the 200s, I'm good. If it's in the 500 something, it's some. Anyway, think about that if you would. It might be.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. And we'll manage the over engineering. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. Vijay Cherakuri had a great question, which is exactly what led us to this. And I'll, at risk of taking us 7 minutes over our time, I'll say Vijay is no stranger to this type of a concept. This isn't, you could take this concept and apply it to any well-done piece of software. Because in part what Hussein was going to say was, yeah, if I took Istio 2005 as a search term, I think if you go search that today, it may not come back with, it might come back with a GitHub issue or something for Istio, but eventually if it's Meshery Istio 2005, like there's one page and one page only that's going to bring you to, and that page should have a context for what the issue is. It'll have the probable cause and suggested remediations for what to do about what's going on. Oh my goodness, what a fantastic user experience that is to be able to reference that. And the notification, like, first of all, you don't have to go to Google to find that. You can, but the notification center that Michael was highlighting will manage the life cycle of those notifications. So if an error like that does occur, well, you'll be seeing that plus the suggested ways of taking care of it in the UI itself. And the reason I say VJ isn't necessarily a stranger to this type of a concept is because VJ and I had an opportunity to work together at Cisco, and he was working on a cloud management platform, not a service mesh management platform, but a cloud management platform that took a very similar approach. And actually, you guys, from what I just heard, you're improving on it. Like, you're making it, even better. But Alonso, I do consider that, at some point, this messaging framework and notification center probably is fairly integral to, it would be one of those characteristics of a component of Meshery that someone would identify as like, oh, that's part of what Meshery is, because that component has this type of capability. Like, hey, it's going to have this this /health endpoint or this /component info endpoint. It'll have common characteristics about, like, and one of those common characteristics is this messaging format, messaging system, so that people can. So Alonso, actually, there's some help wanted labels on those issues. So. That's it from me. I guess I lied. The last thing is, today's hopefully the day. Today's the Meshery 0.5 release day. So if anyone knows of any blockers that should hold us back from releasing, now's the time. All right.
Ali, I guess we're waiting on the control plane queries subscriptions. Are there?
Okay. ETA. Yep, it makes sense. Vineeth, do we know how far away we are? So maybe Vineeth, I'll catch up with you in Slack. I'll go to the Meshery Slack. This is great. Thank you for raising that up. I'll give everyone else more context in there as well, and we'll have to figure out if that should block the release.
Yeah, sure.
Nice. Okay. All right. It's a wrap. Thank you all. See you guys post release, I guess, on the other side.
Thank you. Good luck.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Well done. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye bye, people.